Hello, Charlene. Thank you for being here today to talk about your animation journey and how you learn animation. So, to start, could you maybe tell us a bit more about yourself?
Basically, I am a stay-at-home mom, and I started out my animation journey really back in 2019. But I've always had a love of animation since I was a little kid. It's just growing up, there wasn't really much opportunity to be able to go to universities because usually animation was taught in private universities and we
Yeah.
couldn't really afford that. So it wasn't until recently that, with all the different animators, creating the different instruction sets, like was able to basically fulfill my dream of learning the art of hand-drawn animation. So
So
it
cool.
was really good.
And was it like, I don't know, a day or a specific video you saw or something that you told yourself, okay, I love animation, I will start to practice because it's a bit mysterious and you don't really know how it works. And what was the start of it?
Well, it actually started back when I was a teenager. I live in Florida. So at the time, my parents and I, we went to one of the theme parks, which was MGM Studios. And at the time, the second Disney animation studio was there and they did tours. And growing up, I grew up watching Disney cartoons and their movies. And so it was really cool to kind of get a glimpse behind the veil on how the production started. So when they gave the tour, I think at the time they were working on Mulan as well as Tarzan. And so we were able to walk and like basically it was like a two level. So the tour was on the second level, but we were able to look down and
Yeah.
see the floor. We were able to see the paint lab where they mix the paints, as well as the animation desk. We weren't able to meet any animators there, but it was a really neat process just to see the whole entire, at least part of the studio and how to do that. And that was just really, really fascinating.
You start
And
to understand that people are doing it and that's possible in a way. Yeah.
yeah, it was amazing. And so that I think that image really, really stuck to with me. And then, when as I was growing up, I started drawing when I was I think when I was 11 years old. And I was really into like comics and the try to draw my favorite cartoon characters. And naturally, when you're a kid, you start making your own characters and you want to add your own characters to the stories. And it's like, and sometimes like just drawing still images is just not enough. And you're just like, how did they do that? Like when you look at your favorite cartoons, how did they make the characters move? And so that was been like almost like a mystery that's been going on for a couple decades. Like, how did they do it? Once in a while, like on TV, you would see animators actually giving like a little glimpse on like how the process worked. But this was like before the internet really started picking up. And again, it feels like, that mystery has always been like, shh, hush, hush, don't tell. You got to go to school. You got to pay to know this knowledge. So, it's still true now. But fast forward, when I was in college, I could only, there was like, I was in an art program, but again, the only time that they did animation was the computer animation, because that's what's when they really started, implementing, started doing that besides hand drawn, because, I was more narrow focused. I wanted to do just hand drawn animation because computers and me, we don't really get along.
Okay.
So that's why I was like, it doesn't work out for me. Like, I just want to draw, just pick up a piece of paper, draw, pick up another piece of paper, then draw. And, but no, at the time, it was just, they didn't offer that. And so that desire just pretty much left, um, unfulfilled until, a couple of years ago when, at first I discovered Aaron Blaze, and Aaron Blaze had a YouTube channel and he offered classes like introduction to animation. And it was a really fun series, but it kind of lacked as far as for someone who never picked up a pencil and actually did animation exercises. It just didn't quite work out. And it wasn't until another YouTube channel I came across that really, I call it the Rosetta Stone, that really launched my animation education, which was like AMB, Real Animator Training Library.
Okay.
And he like Aaron Blaze, he worked in the industry and he has a huge passion for animation. And so I started looking into his instructions and his library and stuff. And, with the years of training and stuff, I was able to learn the basics. We start from the bouncing ball, but learning the principles of animation along with the instruction.
Mhm.
And once I finished like a couple of his modules, when I went back to learn from Aaron Blaze, instructions, it made it so much better. So, like I said, like nowadays with the internet, you have access to really high quality instruction where it makes it more feasible to do because you don't have to spend thousands upon thousands of dollars where you would
Mhm.
go to the university. Granted, though, they have their pluses, but when you just want to learn animation as a hobby or just create your own stories, you're just like, I can't afford that.
Yeah, yeah. And what
So,
was the obstacle that was difficult to do at first? Was it I don't know, the notion of timing or the weight of things?
I think part of it was pretty much just the solid drawing part because eventually though drawing comes later. You
Mm.
want to learn about the arcing, and also because usually you have the timing, how much time you want this object to go across the screen or the motion. And so but the main thing is like to get that fluid motion, arcs are really important,
Mhm.
and then also the combination of slowing in and slowing out. And so part of it is just like, as my instructor A and B said, if you can't manage to animate just a simple bouncing ball, how are you going to manage animating a full-blown character?
Yeah.
Because basically animation, as you would say, is a manipulation of shapes. If you can't manage doing like a pendulum swing or a bouncing ball, then you're just like, how are you going to do a character?
Yeah, you could
And
do the character once, but then to add the volume and so on. But that's what you want to do when you do animation. You want to do movies and full of characters. So
yes,
it can be a bit frustrating to just learn from the basics. So you have to kind of learn to love the basics also with simple exercises. Maybe a bouncing ball can become a simple character with eyes and a bit of wobbly arms or something to keep it a bit more fun, you know. Mm.
mhm. Yeah, because when I was going through his instruction, just starting out with the basic bouncing ball, then the jumping ball, and then the swinging pendulums. Like once you really dedicate time just focusing on those two concepts, you start seeing bouncing balls and everything
Mm.
when you start observing cartoons like classic Disney cartoons and even swinging pendulums, like the arms and the legs and stuff. And it's like, and once you because you understand the slowing in, slowing out, getting the arcs just right. Because if, let's say, if you're doing a pendulum and the string tends to go a little wonky, like it's, doesn't stay the same type of shape and stuff, you're just like, what's wrong? Why does this arc look weird? Oh, that's why.
Mm.
So, but it was really cool. And it's just like, and it's kind of like going back to like art school where, you have artists that they look at their masters to like get, I guess like kind of get inspiration. The same thing goes like as an animator, you want to look at, animations that are like, I guess a little bit above like your skill level just to aspire to, like, I want to do this. And I think that kind of helps because before, like when I got more confident in my animation journey, especially implementing the principles of animation, um, whenever there's like a certain scene I want to do, like I just basically almost like binge watch, as they say, all these different cartoons and like the classic Disney's or Looney Tunes. It depends on what I'm after with my characters. Like how do I want it? Like more just like a little scene of Jim walking, or do I want them to react and stuff? Like,
Hmm.
how do these animators do that? So I really like study and try to at least do, at the time I was like doing like studies based on what I saw, observing the cartoons. And that actually helped out a lot. Like, especially when I was doing like other like the flour sack exercises. Once you start doing the flour sack, then you see the flour sack everywhere in
Hmm.
like especially in classic cartoons. Like, oh yeah, that looks more like a flour sack. Yeah,
And you can
that's
add much more personality just because you can make it sad and happy and strong and just with a simple volume. But it's not that simple because you have like two big shapes you have to
yeah.
modulate. So it's a bit I don't know how to say that, but humbling maybe to know that a simple character is not that simple. Yeah,
Mhm.
at first. Mm.
No, I think it helps also to at least like when it comes to animators, I think they spend time learning the model of their character, the formula, and then they would spend at least like a week or maybe the month they say just really honing in on that character and just
Mm.
experimenting, how they're going to move him around. So it is really interesting how that happens. Like even like with my characters, like their model tends to change off and on because as I like observe like other character designs and stuff, it's like, oh, I like to add a little bit of this to that or a little bit of that. So it's like eventually it's kind of hard to settle with like, okay, this is what my character's going to look from this point on, no change.
Mhm. Yeah.
So it is kind of interesting, like even like with Mickey Mouse, when you saw him in earlier stages, how he has changed throughout the decades. And it's like, oh, okay.
Yeah, you can also see that with SpongeBob. It changed a lot, and there is some videos, I guess, about the evolution and why it was maybe easier to animate it in the new way. So that's also how the characters can live by themselves in a way. And maybe you have that kind of stuff too, because you do many cat characters. So I guess sometimes they are the same one returning in a new animation. So
Mhm.
you are able to understand the model a bit more and to make some other characters from the same principles and so on. So could you tell us more maybe about the way you animate those cats basically because it's like kind of your stuff in the animation challenge of Callipeg anyway.
Yeah, the cats are actually inspired by our family cats.
Yeah.
And I originally started, one of the main reasons why I started doing animation, aside from the love of it, but also my little one, I have a daughter, she just loves seeing me draw. And,
Hmm.
we always create adventures with the cats. And the first one, of course, was we had a big fluffy cat named Rocky, and then a smaller cat named Ballerina, and that's kind of where it started. The family, they have cats too, so we're just like we basically take each individual cat and then we kind of created our own. And the style was kind of inspired by, I guess, like the Looney Tunes, like sometimes
Hmm.
the body shape, and eventually though it kind of like because originally it was morphed from the flour sack as far as the body, from what I learned, and then I just worked on the cap design, and it has changed throughout the years that I started, and it's you know cats have their own like complicated fur pattern, so I had to like simplify to make sure that okay, if does this character look the same when they're looking here and then they're looking there and that sort
Hmm.
of stuff, because it's so easy to go off model or and all that. So it's just like I have to like focus and like before I even pick up a pencil to animate, I have to like warm up to draw my characters and plan, okay, which characters are going to be in the scene. And it wasn't like last year, I didn't really do any animation. I was mostly focusing on figure drawing. And then this year I decided I'm just gonna just dive in and just do animation. Because sometimes I guess when you overthink things and you kind of like get a little scared and you kind of like freeze a
Hmm.
bit and you just like it kind of keeps you from doing things. And I guess part of it is just like, I don't feel like I'm that great as an animator, but sometimes in order to get better, you have to just keep practicing, but also more importantly is not be afraid to ask for critiques.
Mhm.
And so it's kind of easy because you're in your own little bubble and you find your work precious. But if you ever want to improve, you have to not hesitate to ask for help. Being like, okay, what do you think about this? What can I do to improve? What am I lacking as far as, the principles of animation that seems to be missing that could actually help with the character, acting. And part of it's just like it's like basically finding out that an animator is an actor, but with a pencil, they say. So it's like,
Yeah.
well, if you're not really a great actor, like, how are you going to do that?
Yeah,
So,
yeah. And did you find some maybe not mentors, but people you just contacted via Instagram or something like this to talk about your animation? Did that happen?
I usually like with my instructor AMB, he used to do critiques whenever he can. And I think part of it is just that right now, I think it's like because it's been so long, I spent almost like a year of not doing any animation. I guess it's just right now it's just doing it. But if I find a couple, sometimes I would reach out to other animators, like peers and stuff, like, what do you think about this? And sometimes they would reply or something like that. Because I'd be like, oh, this is great, or this is, this makes me smile. Because part of my animation, aside from improving, I guess I just want to make people feel happy or like smile and stuff like that. And, like I said, most of the time, aside from just doing it for me, but also when my little one sees my animation, she's like, she gets so excited. And I think that to me is just like, okay, that's worth it.
Yeah, and I've seen on your Instagram that you did a turnaround for a character from Alexandre Blin, and that she did our character too. So you posted those two drawings, and it's nice to because drawing in a way is a natural way to express as a kid, and we just continue to do that. So being able to draw with your kid must be something very intense in a way, just to share and to see her also progress and ask questions maybe, and imagine our characters. So do you feel a way to make stories together? If she can just talk about something and then you add it in your animation, that kind of stuff.
Yes, that's pretty much a good portion of my animations or drawings. She would start telling stories like she loves cats and she loves Transformers.
Okay.
So she loves Transformers too. And sometimes she would just talk, tell me stories and stuff. And, once in a while I would just do little animations or just illustrations too. And, just like this, like, yeah, yeah. And sometimes with the challenges, like one challenge that I did recently with you for Callipeg, I asked like, okay, for this challenge, what do you think they should do? And she's like, like I tried to like, well, what do you think about like a dance party? And she's like, yeah, dance party. And so we did like all the cats dancing.
But that's ambitious because there is a lot of characters.
Yes, that one it took me about maybe like 8 days to do start to finish, and I was like exhausted after. And then let's see, there was another one, the moth. So I was like,
okay, that's one. Okay.
So I was thinking like, okay, metamorphosis, because I never created a transformation or a character or like an object changing into things. So we like cats. It's like, what about a moth? I guess a moth can turn into a cat. And she's like, she also likes bugs too. She's like, oh, that would be great. And so I tried that. And she's just like, she keeps asking whenever I'm working on animation, how's your animation going? Is it done? It's like, no. So she sees it from start to finish, from the rough stage to like the finished product. And she's like, oh.
And she understands that it's long to make it, and it's important to know that, because animation is basically patience, and you have to deal with the frustration of it's taking too long, and also sometimes you don't know how to do that already, and it can be a bit difficult to have an ambitious idea and just don't know how to make it. So, for example, to make some interactions with characters, with the ball throwing animation you made, how did you manage to deal with different characters in the same shot?
Well, before I start doing a group scene or a crowd scene for like the was it the food
Hmm.
challenge and as well as the celebration challenge. I actually was inspired by Studio Ghibli films as well as I watched was it Ernest and Celestine,
Yeah.
and I was like looking up, okay, how did they do groups? Because there really isn't much tutorials on how animators conquer group settings. So a lot of it is like, you have to plan ahead. You have to think about staging, how these characters are going to be in this one scene. Part of it is just like when I did the food challenge, it didn't occur to me like, okay, because I'm used to just animating one character.
Hmm.
And then with the group setting, you have more characters. So like here I had my these four cat characters. Each of them have their own timing and doing their own thing. And so it's just like, oh goodness, I bit off more than I could chew.
Yeah.
But I did it. So it's like sometimes I just had to keep things like simple, like okay, like like the food challenge when I guess you have the ice cream truck character giving out the ice cream to the character Rocky, and he's just walking. And meanwhile, his two friends, Felix and Ballerina, are just like enjoying their ice cream, waiting for him to get his to come over. And so originally it was going to be a lot longer, but it's like is it's like it's animation is a marathon and it
Hmm.
should be treated like a sprint because if you treat it like a sprint, you could easily get burned out and physically get, exhausted. At least for me, I get physically exhausted after, working on a project, not really nonstop, but like really focused for like a
Hmm.
couple weeks or so. And so all in all, like it took a while, but it was so worth it seeing the end. And the same thing goes like with the dance party. That one was more just focusing on like, okay, I have these group of characters. Let's just see them. They're in their own little world. It literally looks like they're their own little world. They're just doing different little moves. So let's just focus on them just doing their own little moves and their own little personalities. And that's pretty much how I tackled it. It
Hmm.
just and I would do like for the dance party, I first did the background, like I did like a little sketch, and then I do like little, I guess I call it scribble roughs placements for where the character is. So it's like laying out the
Hmm.
scene as far as which characters are going to be where. And as I progress through the animation, the characters will be moved a little bit here and there because as they're moving and stuff, sometimes you just wonder, like, okay, are they going to hit each other?
Yeah.
That sort of stuff. So you have to really readjust the staging part of where they are. And then with the sports theme, that one was a little challenging because it's like, okay, how are these characters going to react to the opposing team that's off screen? How are they going to do that? And so it's just, it's one of those like things, it's like it's chaotic. Just stick through it and then it'll work out. But definitely just observing, like basically just like soaking in like animation, movies and stuff. Just like I watch like Studio Ghibli films or even just cartoons like Looney Tunes or Tiny Toons, back in the 90s,
Hmm.
just to see how they did it, how the characters interact and stuff. And
So
that's pretty much it.
do you also watch it frame by frame by I don't know, downloading the video and watching it frame by frame to understand the spacing and so on, or do you just watch the animation and get the feeling of it and just then try yourself?
Um, Usually I just watch the animation just to get
Hmm.
the feel of it. And because, when I was doing like the exercises back in my training, and I still go back to do the training because, it's like an athlete, you
Yeah,
can't just forget,
you have to
just say, oh,
practice.
you have to keep practicing. And so you start seeing, okay, what principles the animator has used and stuff. And then sometimes once in a while, I do a screen recording if I catch it on YouTube. And then I would do frame by frame
Hmm.
just to see like how they do it. And even like I recently discovered, like you could actually do frame by frame, like on the laptop, but just by hitting a couple keys,
Yeah.
like, okay,
Mm.
that works out. It's like, okay, so that's wow. They held that for so many frames, or oh wow, that's on ones or that's on twos. You know, that was actually really helpful.
And that's one of the most basic thing to learn at first in animation, I think, is that you don't have to draw 24 frames for a second. Because when you hear about that, you're like, okay, so I have to make thousands of drawings, and not necessarily, because it depends on the movement and so on. Sometimes a drawing can hold for 6 frames, and that's
Mm-hmm.
a really huge lesson I learned when I just started, because I also learned animation by myself. So when you understand that, you're like, okay, it's a bit less difficult than than I thought, and it's you keep going like that, and you start to learn that it's just simple principles. You just have to make it for a long time, but it's simple in a way. I don't know if you think the same way.
Yeah, it's like kind of giving yourself like a permission, like, okay, it's okay for this character just to be standing there for a
Hmm.
couple frames while the focus character is moving, you know, that sort of stuff. And it's like you don't have to have, because you know, sometimes it depends on like type of school of thought. Like if you really want to make your characters feel real, like make them breathe and stuff, and you know, it's a great goal to have. But if you're like crunched on time, but you still want to do good quality work, it's like sometimes you look at like TV animation is different from the movie, you know, like the
Hmm.
cinema animation, because, you know, different standards and stuff like that, different budget, timeline and stuff. And so, at least that's what I learned. And so it's just for like, if you're just an independent animator and you just want to start making your own stories, but yet you also don't, and it's just you, and
Also.
you're just like, yes, like, okay. Hey, sometimes it's like you want to keep your standards high as far as, you know, good, you know, character design, you know, what your goal is when it comes to when I create, how do I want to relate to my or like
Mm.
how my audience, how do I want them to respond? It's okay to like just have the characters just chill out in the background, or, you know, just you have to figure out what they're going to do. But yeah, just studying how, you know, previous how other animators were able to do certain scenes, that does help out so much. And you're like, okay, I can do this. I'll take that idea and I'll incorporate that. So
Exactly. And in 2D, it's a bit more easy to get away with a few images, because in 3D, you can just have a character being totally fixed. I don't know if that's a term in
static.
English. But yeah, in 3D, it doesn't work, but in 2D, it can work because you focus on other stuff, and it doesn't look dead if it doesn't move for, I don't know, 10 frames, it's okay. So
Yeah.
that's nice on the 2D animation side. And I've seen also in the FX animation, you made a few shots. So do you want to explore that a bit more also, like the sequences and different shots and
Mhm.
not just one single shot?
Yeah, I was very ambitious when I made that one. I decided to try something different with a different character. It was actually inspired by last year's Ink October. I did a series
Mhm.
of mouse drawings, and it was a character I finally figured out her name, like Abby. Like I create all sorts of characters, but when it comes to naming them, I
Yeah.
cannot.
And
I'm not that creative.
you start to tell, does it have to have a signification in particular, or can I just call it, can I just call him George, and is that okay? Or do I have to George meaning something in the story, you know?
Yeah. So I just said like, oh, her name's Abby, and let's
Mhm.
see. I actually have the drawing, but I wanted to be able to basically animate my illustrations. So with the effects, I was like, okay, I was quite curious, which effect should I do? And I decided water. And so I chose the illustration because she's walking in a garden that has like a little garden pond and it's raining. So I thought that would be a really nice scene to do because one, at the time, and I still am, I'm working on improving my walk cycles.
Mhm.
And I never did a walk cycle where the person's like 3/4 and they're heading
Yeah, and that's
towards
difficult.
them. And so, because I always did it on a profile, like going, you know, just static profile. So to be able to do a walk cycle where the character literally is walking across the screen, no, the background's not moving, it's static. And so I thought like, okay, I could do this. But first I ended up having to basically refined her model a little bit and then practice doing like the basic like profile walk cycle just to get the motion because I never really animated a character with, fully clothed with the dress and with the follow through and the overlapped actions.
When I received it, I was like, okay, that's more ambitious, and it was. I think it's my favorite from your animation because it's a delicate animation, and it's there is a specific mood, in that piece in particular.
Yeah, I just thought like, because sometimes like I guess I kind of thought like something peaceful and melancholic. Can't say that word correctly. And, it's just like, when you're walking into a nature scene and it's lightly raining and it's very peaceful, you're in a familiar area. And it was going to be like extended a little bit longer, but I thought like, okay, so once I got the motion of her walking through the garden in the background, then I started creating the water effects. And that part I never did. I actually went through a couple animation scenes, like from Studio Ghibli, and how did they do their water scene? Okay, that was a little complicated. I actually went and looked at Simon the Cat and how that animator did just simple, rain effects. And it's like I looked at it and it's like frame by frame, it's like, okay, I could do that. I could actually do that.
So just a few different frames and then you just loop.
Yep, that's pretty much it. It's like, I did like a couple like rainfalls and wherever the rain fell, like I did the little ripple with the water. And then like some scenes wherever Abby was stepping, doing her down step from the contact. I made sure that there was like a little bit like a ripple because sometimes when you step and it's like a little bit puddly, there's ripples there. So, and then also like a little bit of like the water falling down on the leaf and stuff. So it was that combination. It did take a while and some planning to do, but it was really neat to do like show my process step by step through Instagram. And some of the people were like, "Oh, this is turning out really cool," or like, "Wow." But seeing it at the end and then adding, and then the big thing was trying to find an audio just to do like simple soft rain. And that to me is hard to find because like if there's a certain sound effect and stuff, like where can you go? Will I get this video taken down if I post it because of copyright issues?
Also.
But I managed to like ask someone I follow online, where did you find this? Because I remember them working on an animation. They had some sound effects and they directed me to a website. It's like, oh, okay. So I was able to find something very simple and then I was able to use that for the animation. So with that, I learned different things like how to incorporate audio in Callipeg and just like, yes, I got it. And then I was like really impressed by the water effect. I was like, I'll just leave the character out and just do, like how some people do the calming one, where it's like you just look at the scene and it's like the background of like rainfall and stuff. So like, that makes sense.
And also when doing an animation, you have to decide, do I go for colors afterwards or not? Because depending on the ambition of the animation, because we talk here a lot about the Callipeg challenges. So it's 1 month to do 10 seconds or less. So it's manageable, but you still have to schedule in a way. So how do you work on your animation? Do you say, okay, I have I don't know, 2 days to find the idea and then a week to do the rough? How do you do that?
So for each animation, like I do try to plan. Now I try to plan a lot earlier because it used to be I would do like the last couple weeks of the month, which that to me, after a couple challenges, it's like, okay, I can't do this because depending, like each animation's different. It has its own challenges, its own demands.
And sometimes you don't know it before being in front of it. Okay, it will take 5 days, so yeah.
Nope. It takes a little bit longer. And sometimes, some days you actually have more stamina to do certain things, and other days you barely have any energy. So usually I would plan a little bit, like do like a little rough sketch. have an idea, and then I would do a very rough animation. Just it looks like scribbles, but you could tell it's the character
Mhm.
and all. And then I would usually spend about like a week on the hand-drawn animation. Sometimes a week or and stuff like I would do this the rough parts like the keys, and then I would do go back and I clean up those rough animations, and then I would do like the breakdowns along with that. And then those are established, then I go back and do a clean pass. And then once the clean pass is done, then I do the in-betweens and till I feel like the animation looks really well as far as nice and clean. Then I work on the colors. And so the coloring part to me takes a while because, I, I would have to do like hand, most of the time I have to do like hand, do it by hand because
Mhm.
I tried the bucket tool a couple times and didn't quite work out for me, but also because my style, even though you think you got a closed line,
Yeah.
there's like, it just knows. It could be a pixel off and like, no, it's like, where? So
And
I would
sometimes I
do,
just use field shape. So I
mhm,
just draw a big shape once, and then I will do the little scribbles. But I also like to do um, coloring by hand, just
mhm,
because it's like relaxing and so on. But if you don't
yeah.
have time, just field shapes, and then you do the little stuff. But yeah, coloring is a big part of the time you have to allocate to a specific animation. Mm.
So like I usually, since I'm not really good when it comes to lighting and shadow yet, I just keep my colors colorful but flat. Like for the Abby walking in the rain, because the illustration was done in Inktober, so it was all grayscale. So
Mhm.
I wanted to keep that style grayscale. And so I just mostly focus on just sometimes for the characters, I just do like the top first layer was just basically like their base color. And then once the base color is done, then I will go either duplicate the layer and do alpha lock and then do the details
Mm.
so that the details stay within that image. They don't go out the line. And so, but yeah, the coloring, it is relaxing once I get all the animation done. But I do, once I plan and stuff, I try to be mindful, like, okay, I only have so much time to do this and that. So let's just it's hard to schedule it. It's like how long, like you said, how long it takes because once you think you know how long it takes, then you're like, okay, it might take longer, or like, oh, it actually didn't take that long.
Mm.
Because sometimes when you're doing in the middle of the animation, especially in the initial stage, you think like, oh, the character's going to do this, but then somehow it doesn't quite work out, so you have to like redraw it. Like in the dance party scene, I actually had to like redraw a couple characters, like especially like with Rocky, the big fluffy brown cat, that I had to go through several tries as far as what is he going to do. Like he would do one dance but didn't quite work out, so I had to like start over again and then do another dance. And then eventually I found like some moves that worked out really well with him. So like, okay, that we'll keep that and just
Mhm.
push on through. So it just, you know, but I try to do that towards like the initial phase, not when everything's like all cleaned up and stuff. Like, nope,
Yeah.
just keep going, just keep going.
That's one of the key advices also we can tell to maybe beginners in animation. Be sure that your rough and your tie down is good enough, not perfect because it's never perfect, but good
Mhm,
enough before going to inking and coloring, because sometimes you're just I don't like it that much, but I will continue because I have to do the steps and so on. But then you
mhm,
want to change it and it's just a nightmare. So it can be nice also to just say, okay, I will go back to that tomorrow and see the mistakes again and just be another person tomorrow and have a
mhm.
different set of eyes. So I know that sometimes just keeping it away for a while helped me to unlock in a way a situation, even if I don't know how sometimes. It just now I get it and I don't know, yeah, I don't know why I get it now, but
Yeah, I think, yeah, the big advice that like rather withdrawing as well as the animation is like when you're really like focus on it, but it's not working, just
mhm.
walk away,
Yeah.
give it a day or so. And then when you come back, it's like, okay, and you get that idea, like a new idea, or you're nice and fresh and you could tackle it and it works out so much better. Just walk away. That's a good advice. Walk away.
Yeah, because here also we are talking about personal projects, because on professional projects you can just walk away from the studio, I guess. But in personal projects you can just take a bit more of time, and also more simple about your approach. Sometimes just be one step, even one line at a time, to just be sure that it works. And I know that something that helps me also is to see how I did other animations, because sometimes you just forget about how you fixed a situation. So I like to have that kind of archives of animation. I can just go back. Okay, I did the is out that way, and that was good. So do you also I don't know, maybe use your Instagram account as a archives from your work, and do you go back to older animation, older drawings sometimes?
Yeah, it's kind of nice to have that archive because sometimes when you feel like I guess you kind of get like when you get so caught up like I guess in your own progress and stuff that
Mhm.
sometimes you get like a high like wow I have come a long way, or sometimes you feel low like oh I haven't grown. But and especially when you start comparing your style and stuff to other people that
Mhm.
you feel like are so much better. And so sometimes I do go to my past work and I do see growth and stuff. It's like, wow, I have come a long way, or like, wow, I've actually became more ambitious with my compositions and, themes when it comes to my animation. So yeah, it's something good. Like sometimes it's like, wow, I animated that. How did I do
Mhm.
that? It's like wow. But yeah, it is pretty cool because when you look at some old work, you're like, oh yeah, I'd use that technique, or like you kind of like remember like the process of that. And sometimes it's also just good to just see how, how you
Mhm.
progress throughout the years. And yeah, I feel like I came a long way from when I first started. It's
Yeah.
just even just doing the animations and just not be frozen with self-doubt and fear. It's like just do it. Just have fun. That's more important. Just have fun. You know. So that's a big thing for me.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. And do you also keep on practicing drawing outside of animation? Do you make some still life or painting? I know you do some painting also.
Yeah, I sometimes I do illustrations with
Mhm.
like just other characters with watercolors. I do occasionally do portraits of family members, like realistic portraits, like of mostly with like color pencil or like chalk pastels.
Mhm.
So I kind of go like a little bit branch out aside from animation, especially if I feel like I need to take a little break and just, focus on like other ideas or other skills. So,
Yeah,
and sometimes depending on like the mood, like I would go into like sculpture or like sewing. So I do a lot of different like hobbies and crafts. So,
yeah, and it will always, I guess, help to get new ideas and to just keep moving and just try different stuff. And maybe you can I don't know, draw something, and like you said, you just took that illustration from a few months ago to make an animation from it. So
mhm.
that's really an organic process, and you just learn every time a new thing, and that's the beauty of it in a way. Even if you don't do animation for a while, you come back to animation, and because you drawn, because you observed what's around you, you've become a better animator without animating. That's a bit strange, but I don't know if you felt that, like you didn't animate for a while, and then you just understand stuff better just from observing.
Yeah.
Mm.
There is like, and when it comes to cognitive learning, there is like almost like a gel. It's like a settling state. There's times where you spend a good portion of your time learning the concept, but then some instructors will say, okay, now that you learned this, take a break and do something else and then come back to it like either like the next day or even like a couple months, and then
Mm.
everything starts clicking. It's like um it's like you have to like build like neural pathways. So like when it comes to like, learning a new skill and stuff, you feel like, oh, I have to keep at it, keep at it, keep at it. But sometimes you have to take a break because sometimes like if you keep practicing, but if you're practicing wrong or you're starting over and you're trying something different, trying to get the same result, you might not end up getting that concept.
Mhm.
But yeah, like sometimes when I take a little break from animation and I move on like with illustration or like for like a couple times I did quilting for like a charity, make like several quilts to give away. And in that process, my daughter and I, we created characters like I have a sewing machine and the sewing machine works out really well. But once in a while, because it's technology, it tends to glitch. And we say, oh, there's a gremlin that wants to sabotage me from sewing. It's like, ah, so we created an illustration of a gremlin trying to go after my sewing machine. And sometimes just like, if animation, if we're as an animator, if we're actors, sometimes we have to go out and, live life, not just stay stuck in our desk and, on our paper and, try out different things because sometimes if we create characters, what are the characters like? What do they do outside from just walking on a screen or talking to somebody? Do they have certain skills? Do they like have certain hobbies? How do they get mad? It's always good to interact with other people because sometimes the people that are around you, you could probably take like their personality or, how they respond to certain things and add that to the character. Or even just like going outside. It's like, if it's a beautiful day and you see this beautiful landscape and you're like, I want to, draw that and add that scene, and how that scene, like that place made me feel and see if I could evoke that feeling with the characters and stuff and see if other people can feel the same way how I feel about it, or they might respond differently. So yeah, it's important to take a break and do other things because, I think our experiences help um, build and improve our storytelling through animation. So
Absolutely, yes.
yeah.
And by the way, could you tell us more about how you discovered Callipeg and how did you learn about it and so on? Because I know that different people have different stories about that. So was you were you looking for an animation app or did you just learn about it in a way?
I when I first started my animation journey, I tried all sorts of animation apps. At first, I went through Animation Desk, and then I found your app because I was just basically when you want to learn how to animate, you just want something to, just want to be able to just animate, find the button where it's like where you could add paper and stuff. And it wasn't until I guess this year, because I tried Callipeg several times, and I think your tutorials, not only your video tutorials, but also like the handwritten instructions, because that really helped. That combined helped me learn the software. And I think, I made it just like to make things easier for me. Like I decided, like, okay, for my iPad animation, I'm going to focus on just one software. So, and, for a while, I did use like Procreate, just the illustration app. And I thought like, okay, but it was very limited. So I always went back to Callipeg because of the layers and what you guys offered as far as like you add audio, you could do different type of transformations if you wanted to move certain things. So, but then I decided like, okay, I'm going to, because I feel like I still barely scratched the surface with Callipeg. So, but I decided like, I'm going to spend time to really learn this app. And once I really got more comfortable, it's like, I feel more free to work on my animations because I don't have to worry about where's the add a frame button or how do I save this, how do I save that? Because naturally when you learn a new software, it takes time and it kind of hinders as far as I would just want to animate, I want to create my stories. It's like so yeah, it's basically like a conscious decision like okay, I feel like, time is very precious. I like this app. I like the customer service because you guys are so patient with me when I
Thank
ask
you.
questions. It's like, okay, I'm confused. How do I do this? Is there something to explain? And also, you guys, it is like the taking the time to look at the tutorials and sometimes even watching the tutorials over and over just to get the concepts.
Mhm.
Well, that really helped me. So that's pretty much, it's like a conscious decision. Like, I like this app. I like the people working behind it. I don't have time really to sit down and figure out how to work things. I know how to work it. Let's create stories. That's pretty much it.
Yeah,
So,
that's the way, because we want to simplify everything enough to just go and animate. Because we also I've done some demos with children also, so
mhm.
it's so nice to see that they can understand pretty quickly. You draw a frame, you say okay, it's 2 frames, and then you go to another one, and just seeing them animating pretty easily is a big thing for us, because we just want people to animate and in a way just yeah, do animation and tell stories and more, because we are artists from the start, and then we decided to make a tool. So it's so nice to see people also committed like you on making the challenges and so on. So it's always a pleasure to see your animation. By the way, do we have any idea yet about the summer adventure challenge?
I'm thinking I'm debating because a lot is happening this month, as far as travels and stuff. So
Mhm.
literally summer adventure. I don't know if to do like a simple like montage because I'm still thinking, but I have to like settle on an idea
Mhm.
before because it does take a while. I thought like, okay, maybe the cats are going to go on a plane ride because we're going on a plane ride.
Mhm.
And then we're going to go someplace far away or like maybe a beach scene or something. So it's there. Just got to first put it on paper and see about doing transitions on maybe think about like transitions or something like
Mhm.
that. Like how you see like sometimes with like I guess it's called montages, like
Yeah,
cartoons where it's like like one scene cut to another scene to
mhm.
another scene. So but that's one thing. Or they could just be lounging out on a beach.
Yeah. But I
That
think a montage could be interesting, because you can make a limited animation, but just
one.
going from like 4 different shots and having simple interactions and just focusing on the cinematography of
Mhm.
it could be nice. So yeah,
Yeah, all depends on the time because time is the
of course,
month.
of course.
The month is going by fast. It's like already the fifth. It's like wow.
Yeah, yeah. And just to finish, do you have any, because you told a lot of advices and recommendations, but do you have any final advice, final motivation for people who want to animate on their own, not specifically in a school or in a studio, just making their own animation?
Just do it if you can. But, I would say like there is a lot of good online instruction now. And, but, if let's say if you already have some skills, as far as understanding the animation principles, I would say like don't let the fear like paralyze you or stop you from doing animation. It may not be perfect, but it'll work out. You'll get better in time. So it's pretty much that. At least for me, it's just dive in and just do it.
Mhm.
And have fun.